Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're looking at a quote-unquote old weapon, but one that is extremely relevant in today's content. I mean, have you seen a shotgun do this? Look at it. All I did was throw a smoke bomb. Even if we take a look at our current GL King, it's actually a slower time to kill on Carl, but we'll get into what's happening here and more in just a moment. So first things first, what are we talking about? What weapon? Well, today's shotgun is of course Perfect Paradox, an episode Echoes weapon that released during one of the later acts of that episode. A couple things to note though is it is not craftable, which means you are gonna have to get a god roll the old fashioned way. And when it does come to actually getting some rolls, you'll need to play through the Echo story, which you can start right here on Nessus with this quest, if you haven't started already. And once you've done enough of that quest line, you can then head over to Failsafe and start spending engrams for whatever role you want. I should also mention though, that while going through the story, you do get a pretty fantastic roll for free. So to start us off, let's take a look at our perks as every good weapon review begins. In column 3, we get Slide Shot, Field Prep, Dual Loader, Pugilist, Threat Detector, and Threat Remover. And in the fourth column, we get Trench Barrel, Swashbuckler, 1-2 Punch, Opening Shot, Vorpal Weapon, and Barrel Constrictor. Now, before we go into what perks are desirable and what they do, I want to clarify why we want this shotgun. And given its rapid fire frame and the capabilities of the clip I showed in the beginning, we want Perfect Paradox to dispatch elites, majors, mini bosses, champions, stuff like that as quick as possible. We want to run around dealing with ads using our other weapons and abilities with whatever build you've got, then swap over to Perfect Paradox when something a little too tough shows up. This is the role of most shotguns, and especially Perfect Paradox. Also, the inclusion of anti-barrier shotgun this episode makes us actually want a shotgun that does just this. But now back to the perks. In column 3, I'm personally looking at Dual Loader and Threat Detector. Now, if I'm gonna be 100% honest with you here, the only perk I actually want on this weapon is Dual Loader, but I do think it's important to understand why that is. So to that end, let's first take a look at Threat Detector. This is a perk that works off of stacks. If you're close to one enemy, you get ×1. And if you're close to 2 or more, you get 2 stacks of Threat Detector. This buff gives us some stability, handling, and reload speed. It actually maxes out the latter 2 stats. And the big one we're concerned with here is reload speed for most cases. We can see here going quite rapidly while we're near a group of ads. The gun also handles better, but as a whole, it's actually just not good enough even when it's enhanced. Because if we go back to the perks, the aforementioned Dual Loader is here, and that does a very simple thing. It reloads 2 pellets at a time, and in this clip that you're seeing, 3, because the perk is actually enhanced. So if there were any way for Threat Detector, or any reload perk for that matter, to surpass Dual Loader, it would have to at least triple the reload speed of the shotgun at base. And that's just not possible, especially when you can have other perks and armor mods that decrease the dual/triple reload time too. This fact makes Dual Loader the absolute best pick in this third column, which then takes us over to our fourth column. We now want to see how to make our Perfect Paradox as lethal as possible. The few perks that immediately jump out to me are Trench Barrel, 1-2 Punch, and Vorpal Weapon. Starting with 1-2 Punch, I really want to say it's not a bad perk, but it's definitely for specific builds and playstyles, and those aren't really aligned with what we want Perfect Paradox to be. However, if you're using a melee heavy build, even like my last build video if you haven't seen that, 1-2 Punch can absolutely be part of your god roll. But from my experience, there are better shotguns out there that roll with this perk. So back here, the other perk that I'd like to touch on before the heaviest hitter is Vorpal Weapon. This is a very standard perk that will give Perfect Paradox a 15% damage bonus against mini bosses, bosses, and vehicles. Now, simply put, this perk does grant us the ability to deal more damage with 0 hoops to jump through on top of that. You just shoot the enemy and you're good. But the only thing that prevents me from wholeheartedly promoting this perk is that we have another option. And this one is Trench Barrel, which actually boasts the highest damage buff, even including Swashbuckler at max stacks. As for how this perk works, it's super simple. You deal melee damage to receive 3 stacks of the Trench Barrel buff. Each shot fired within 5 seconds will consume 1 stack and be buffed by 50%. And you can use ranged melees for this, like Smoke Bomb or Throwing Knife. Any melee works with Trench Barrel. This was actually a fairly recent change, so I don't blame you if you didn't know that. But then what's more is that this perk also offers us bonus reload speed. So if we think back a little bit about Threat Detector, there's even less reason to run that perk. But now, before we start talking about god rolls and imitating that intro clip, we you've got a very important origin trait. This one is Cast No Shadows and reads, dealing melee damage increases this weapon's handling and loads a small amount of ammo from reserves. Now here on Perfect Paradox, that reload is always going to be 2. The handling is nice, but we don't know how much it's actually offering. Regardless though, this reload is important because it's actually just trench barrel, but instead of giving us bonus damage, it's a free reload. Granted, you can't get 3 shots to be reloaded, so you will eventually need to hit the reload button if you're shooting optimally over a prolonged period of time. But just like trench barrel, it activates on ranged melees. A throwing knife reloads 2 rounds and gives us a 50% damage buff thanks to trench barrel. Where Cast No Shadows deviates from trench barrel is how it can re-proc. This takes us to Smoke Bomb. With this hunter ability, we can toss a smoke and reload our entire reserve's worth of ammo, which opens the doors to that clip from the beginning. But before diving more into that, what is the God roll? Well, for our minor perks, whatever you want. Backup mag seems to always cap at 8, so even if you don't get a mag extending perk, you can still get max ammo. As for our main perks, we want dual loader and trench barrel, plain as. These 2 perks pair beautifully together. Trench gives you 3 shots of 50% increased damage, and dual loader loads 3 shots when enhanced. There simply isn't a more perfect match. The only thing that could derail this combo is if you're spamming more melees than you're actually shooting, which is a very real possibility, which thanks to Cast No Shadows could actually take over for dual loader. And looking at all the perks, if you're a melee fiend, I actually might even go for Pugilist and Trench Barrel. We didn't talk about Pugilist, but that's because it's pretty much only for this niche case, and Pugilist simply refunds 20% melee energy on kills. And then for any other roles, where you would put Trench Barrel, Vorpal is an alright alternative, but in my mind, the God roll is plain and simply dual loader and Trench Barrel. And this is actually the static roll you get from the Echoes questline and what I have right here. So if this God roll interests you at all, there isn't even RNG involved. But now to end us off, I want to do a quick overview of how easily this shotgun is optimized when you're running a Prismatic Hunter. Running with the Smoke Bomb synergy I just showcased, you can really up your damage. From the shotgun alone, you get plus 50% damage thanks to Trench Barrel, but then if you include the 15% weaken from Smoke Bomb on top of that, that's a 71% increase. And then another zero cost move is applying Radiant from Fast of Dawn in our Prismatic subclass. This gives us a 25% increase for a total of 113% more damage, and all of that is just from tossing a single Smoke Bomb and holding down the trigger. There's no surges or anything like that. And this enables us to kill very beefy targets. Perfect Paradox is fantastic, and if you're looking for a good way to deal with barriers this season, I 100% recommend you grab one of these. And I think that's everything I wanted to say today. Thank you so much for getting this far into the video. If you are getting this far and you're somewhat interested in my channel and what I do, me, G-Miners, and Llama are actually streaming all of Destiny 1 over on Twitch. They're on YouTube and Twitch. I'm just on Twitch for now. So I would love for you to come by and say hello. We're live at like 1 p.m. EST pretty much every day for December. Other than that, again, thank you so much for getting this far into the video. If you want to support me and support the channel, a like, comment, and subscription goes a very long way, farther than you can probably know. Also come by the Twitch. Want to support me and support the channel, but you can't think of a comment down below. Perfect Paradox. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.